functionality.
This meeting is being recorded.
There you go. What to do when you're ready to submit for review and what to expect once you have submitted for review. So I'll reference the different tools and resources that are available to project teams as we discuss this process, but we'll dive deeper into those towards the end. So I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. Hopefully we'll get through most of your questions, but please jot down any questions you have so that we can address those at the end if I haven't covered them. So let's start with registration. LEED and WELL projects must still register separately and pay the respective fees for each rating system. There are no additional fees or discounts for using this pathway or the crosswalks, and you're still going to use both the LEED and WELL platforms for your project. We have gotten requests for combining the platform where everything is uploaded to one place, and trust me, this is on my wish list as well. But while we aren't there, we are making improvements to the platforms to help simplify the process. So there are a couple different options for how and when to indicate your intent to use this pathway in both your LEED and WELL account. On the screen are the options for your WELL account. During the registration process, which is shown on the right, you'll see the options to provide the LEED certification ID and name. If you have already registered, you can edit your product information. Additionally, there's an opt-in tile within the dashboard for eligible projects, and that's the image on the left. If you see that tile and click on opt-in, a new window will open up, allowing you to put in your LEED project information and indicate your intent to use the Streamlined certification process. You'll then be able to save that information. You are able to edit this information at any time. So if your project information or strategy changes, you can always go in and update it. Don't feel like you're stuck or frozen into a commitment you made at one point. So within the LEED Online process, the process is similar. So let's jump to the next slide, please. So if you're registering your project, you'll see the options on the left, and then you can enter your WELL project ID and project name. If you've already registered your LEED project, you can go to the LEED details tab, shown in the image on the right, click on the pencil icon, which is where the top arrow is pointing, to edit the information. Once the edit page opens, you can update the WELL project ID and project name and hit to save the information. And next slide. There's some additional functionality within your WELL project account as well. So shown in this image are the filters in the scorecard within WELL Online. If you choose the crosswalk you're utilizing, it will show you the features that are applicable to the crosswalk. You will notice that there are several filters included in addition to the different crosswalks. So please take a minute and explore those tools next time you're in your WELL account. There may be other filters that are helpful to you that may or may not actually be related to LEED. So we hope these are helpful tools. There will be additional functionality added as this work continues, but we want to be sure to cover a few that were of our initial intent. We continue to work with USGBC on ways to expand the alignment between the two programs, as well as add online functionality. If you have specific ideas or requests for improvement, specifically to the WELL Online functionality, please let us know. While we do our best to anticipate what your needs may be and how project teams may utilize these tools, you are the ones actually using them. So please let us know what you like and what ideas you have for improvement. Yes, there we go. Once your project is registered, you're ready to start documenting the integrated approach to health and sustainability. You can use the crosswalk to determine which sustainability and wellness strategies your project is pursuing, or may be applicable to both rating systems. You will utilize the LEED plus WELL submittal form to track which features or credits are being attempted and document which compliance path is being pursued. You will then upload the required documentation to either your LEED or WELL project, depending on which compliance path is being chosen. We'll discuss this further when looking at the crosswalk, but you will choose one compliance path. The feature or credit specific documentation only needs to be provided in the platform of the compliance path chosen, not both. Within WELL Online, we've added some functionality to make this easier. For the features that are applicable to the crosswalk, you'll see the options shown on the screen. For features in which you're utilizing the LEED compliance path, you can check the box, which lets the reviewer know your intent, and they will check the LEED review for confirmation of compliance with this feature. There is no other documentation required for this credit in your WELL account. So for example, what is shown on the screen is AO 2.1 prohibit indoor smoking. The checkbox would be used when the project is pursuing EQ prerequisite environmental tobacco smoke control. All documentation would be provided within the LEED submittal for environmental tobacco smoke control, so no documentation is needed in AO 2.1. This checkbox tells the reviewer to refer to the LEED submittal instead of looking for documentation to refer to for AO 2.1. So once you're ready to submit both projects for review. Ideally, the reviews would be submitted within a day or two of each other. Because of the coordination of two reviews, submitting them at the same time helps to ensure that they are both returned on time without one review being held up, or any features or credits being pended because the other review is not complete. This diagram shows how the streamlined pathway would typically work. The project will submit for preliminary documentation review for both the LEED and WELL reviews at the same time, and would receive the completed review around the same time. The following would happen for the final review. At that point, the project would typically be awarded their LEED certification. The project will still need to complete performance testing prior to being certified for WELL, though. And although there are circumstances that performance testing was already completed and is submitted at the same time as the documentation review, so there are situations in which they both would receive their certification at the same time. We do recognize that projects don't always fall into the timeline shown here smoothly, and we're happy to discuss project-specific scenarios and what might be the best path. I do also want to note that the same phase of documentation should be submitted. For example, you cannot use this path and submit for pre-certification for one standard and full certification for another. The burden of proof and documentation required is very different between pre-certification and full certification. And achieving a feature or credit during pre-certification is not equivalent to achieving it for full certification. For reference, this is a pathway that many projects might pursue using a standard crosswalk. In this instance, the project would only be applying LEED credits to the WELL project. In that situation, the LEED project must be certified before any credits can be applied to the WELL project. This can happen during the final WELL documentation review. However, we typically suggest that you do address any crosswalk features during the final documentation review and not wait until the performance review in case it were to impact performance testing. For example, if a feature requires performance testing, but you're pursuing the LEED compliance path, but then that LEED credit is not achieved, you could have to send the performance testing agent back to the site to conduct testing you don't originally anticipate needing. So this pathway extends the certification timeline since the WELL reviews cannot be completed until after the LEED project has achieved certification. So I do want to mention that teams are still able to use this pathway with the current crosswalk. Using the new crosswalk does not mean that teams are required to use the streamlined pathway. This is just an added benefit. So before the review is returned, the LEED and WELL review teams will coordinate to confirm which features and credits should be awarded in the respective review. So any LEED credits awarded will be awarded in the WELL review, and any WELL features that have been achieved will be awarded in the LEED review. Any features or credits that are pending will also be pending in the corresponding review. So the review comment you get in one is going to correspond to the same review comment you get in the other. Once that cross-check is complete, the reviews will be returned in their respective platforms. So you'll still receive two separate review reports, but the features or credits that have been attempted via the crosswalk will be noted in each review. Okay. Now let's jump into the fun stuff, the actual tools and resources. So to support projects pursuing this pathway, there's a suite of tools and resources that are available on both the LEED and WELL websites. In the next few minutes, we'll go through the tools and resources created to help teams and reviewers communicate effectively for a smooth communication review process. The first is the LEED plus WELL Streamlined Certification Process Guide. It's designed to help you understand eligibility for the offering, explain how to use the two-way crosswalk, guide you in registering or updating your projects to indicate the pursuit of the streamlined certification process, and provide a high-level summary of the process. The document should answer most overarching questions that you might have and contains a lot of information that we are covering today during this presentation. There are also FAQs available on both platforms that speak to specific project questions and scenarios you may encounter. After the webinar, if you have questions that are not addressed by the published resources or the FAQs, you can reach out to the GBCI Contact Us form or your WELL support tab for your project, and our team will be happy to help address your questions. Those links will also be provided at the end for your reference. So we continue to add to these questions as we get questions. So if you have a question that's not addressed in the FAQs, please let us know. We do coordinate with USGBC, so while there are FAQs on both platforms, they are the same questions and same answers on both platforms. So you don't have to check both platforms to find your answers. And it isn't just the FAQs, next slide, that are on both platforms. All of the tools and resources are as well. There are landing pages on both wellcertified.com and usgbc.org that have all of the crosswalks, the submittal templates, and the process guide. Again, these resources are updated simultaneously, so both sites will have the same information. For those of you familiar with the WELL knowledge base, the tools and resources can also be found there as well. Note that to use any crosswalk for a project, the boundary and scope must be the same for both the LEED and WELL certification programs. For example, you can't use core for your LEED certification and then full certification for WELL. If you're using interiors, core, or complete building, the scope should be the same for both certification programs. So let's dig into the LEED plus WELL crosswalk. This tool shows how individual LEED credits map to specific WELL features and vice versa. As projects are being designed, project teams can use the crosswalk to identify where LEED and WELL are aligned and which strategies and initiatives support both programs. Project teams may choose to use some or all of the LEED credits and WELL features listed in the crosswalk. Please take note of the notes column on the right of the document, which clarifies any details on the alignment, such as how points are awarded or the corresponding feature or credit where specific strategies or credit versions may be required. On the left of the side, you'll see that there are 4 different crosswalks. There are actually 2 different crosswalks available in 2 different arrangements. So there's a crosswalk for LEED B, D, and C, and then a different one for LEED I, D, and C. You may reference the crosswalk in the order of the LEED credits or order of the WELL features. The information is identical in both formats, which allows you to use the order that's most comfortable or relevant to you and your team. Any credits or features not listed in the crosswalk do not currently have an eligible crosswalk pathway. The features and credits included have been included after extensive research and discussion by both technical teams. So all compliance paths in the crosswalk are optional, so a team can choose to utilize as few or as many as you'd like. We do review the crosswalks regularly as addenda is published by both LEED and WELL. So if addenda impacts any of the features or the credits in the crosswalk, we will work with USGBC to determine if an update or new guidance is needed and release an updated crosswalk or submittal template if necessary. Within the crosswalk, there are 3 types of compliance paths identified. Yeah, if you'll jump to the next slide. There we go. The first compliance path is the 2-way crosswalk, when either the LEED or WELL approach may be used because the credit and feature are deemed to be equivalent. The LEED credit achievement can be used to confirm the corresponding WELL feature, or the WELL feature achievement can be used to confirm the corresponding LEED credit. This is denoted by the 2-way arrows, and these pathways are in white. In the example above, this is LEED credit bicycle facilities and WELL features VO 4.1 and VO 4.2 facilities for active occupants. A project team can choose to comply with either bicycle facilities or the 2 facilities for active occupants features, but do not have to do both. As you can see in this case, there are 2 WELL features listed for 1 LEED credit. This occurs throughout the crosswalk. If there are multiple features listed, be sure to read the documents or notes clearly to know if all must be achieved, or sometimes it's 2 of 3 features must be achieved. In this instance, because you see a plus sign, it's indicating that both features must be achieved. If you see an or between the features, then you can choose one or the other. The second path is where LEED credit achievement can be used to confirm the corresponding WELL feature achievement, but the reverse is not applicable. In 1-way crosswalk and denoted by the cells with a gray background and a 1-way arrow pointing towards the WELL columns. These pathways are in gray. In these instances, the LEED compliance path is deemed to be more stringent. In the example above, this is LT credit high priority site. In this case, if projects achieve LT credit high priority site, and you can see that there are different paths or options listed depending on if you're pursuing LEED V4 or V4.1, then they would be awarded credit for XO 4.1 site remediation. However, the reverse is not true. So teams cannot use the WELL feature to achieve high priority site. The third path is where WELL feature achievement can be used to confirm the corresponding LEED credit achievement, but the reverse is not applicable. As shown above in this 1-way crosswalk, it is denoted by the cells in blue and 1-way arrow pointing to the LEED columns. These pathways are in blue. In these instances, the WELL compliance path is deemed to be more stringent. In the example above, this is LT credit surrounding density and diverse uses. If the project team uses VO 5.1, site planning and selection, then they would automatically be awarded LT credit surrounding density and diverse uses in the LEED review. Let's see, next slide. Thank you. Pay close attention to any notes on the right-hand column, as some crosswalk compliance paths require specific strategies or combinations of strategies to be used. This pathway is open to both LEED V4 and V4.1 projects. The crosswalk and notes and details regarding the LEED version 4 or 4.1 compliance path to which the crosswalk applies. In some cases, this helps identify the credit names where they differ, but in other cases, there may be a particular credit version that must be used. For example, in some cases, only the 4.1 version of a LEED credit may be applied to the well application. In instances where the LEED v4.1 compliance path is required, projects did not have to upgrade their entire project to LEED v4.1. They only need to pursue the LEED v4.1 version of the credit for that one specific credit that applies to the crosswalk. The above also shows how the notes will be displayed for equivalent compliance paths. For feature XO 7.1 and XO 8.1, which were equivalent to LEED credit materials ingredients, a project team could choose either pathway. If the project is documenting compliance for their well account, they'll earn 1 point for each well feature they achieve. If they're documenting the LEED project, they must achieve option 1 and exemplary performance. It's also noted that LEED version 4.1 is required. One of the questions we often get is what percentage of features or credits are included in the crosswalk. So in overall points in either rating system, about 30% of the features and credits could be applied to the corresponding program. Projects going for platinum in either LEED or well could potentially achieve 40% of their points from the corresponding rating system. That does include the features that have a dual compliance path. So you can't expect for a well project to get 40% of its points for LEED and the LEED project to get 40% of its points from well. That said, this could be a significant number of credits or features that would have otherwise required duplicate documentation, or even sometimes the documentation is slightly different, so 2 sets of documentation. Now let's look at the submittal form. This form is required to be provided for both the LEED and well certification reviews. Project teams must complete and upload the form to identify which compliance paths are being used. This is the one and only document that must be uploaded to each platform. The submittal form plays an important role in communicating your overall strategy to reviewers. There are separate versions of the submittal form for LEED BD&C and LEED IDNC projects. Each form has a tab sorted by LEED credit order and another sorted by well feature order. You can choose which tab you would like to use, and you only have to complete one. The chosen compliance path column, which is circled in the center of this image, on one of the 2 tabs must be completed. You may use the order most comfortable or relevant to your team. The drop-down options and color coding in the submittal form will help clarify the available options for the crosswalk for a given credit or feature where only one-way compliance is available. The color coding is aligned with the color coding that's in the crosswalk. However, please refer to the crosswalk PDF for additional compliance notes, since some of those crosswalk compliance paths require specific strategies or combinations to be used. Those notes are not included here in the template. So ensure that information is reported consistently within each program's platform and across the 2 platforms. For example, it can cause delays in the review process if the uploads for a given feature or credit are not in alignment with what is indicated in the submittal template as the compliance path. Additionally, ensure the feature or credit selections in the LEED and well platform scorecards match those indicated in the LEED and well submittal form. For example, if you're using the well compliance path for LEED LT credit access to quality transit and don't have any documentation uploaded to LEED Online, you should still mark that credit as attempted. If you do not indicate that you're attempting that credit, the reviewer may question if you had intended to attempt that credit and if they should check the well review to see if VO 5.2 site planning and selection has been awarded. In short, check your work. This applies in general to any submittal, but ensure that you have uploaded all the correct documentation to the correct location and you're consistent with your messaging and documentation throughout both submittals. If you're using the streamlined documentation process, meaning the reviews are both underway at once, LEED and well reviewers will work behind the scenes to ensure that any credits or features that use the crosswalk will have a coordinated pending and awarded status when the reviews are returned. Copies of the LEED and well review reports do not need to be uploaded to the other platform. This process of checking the other program's credit or feature status occurs during each review phase as long as both projects are active and is at the credit or feature level. So there's no need to wait until the project is fully certified under one rating system before the crosswalk can apply to the other. Put another way, when a LEED credit is awarded in one of the design, construction, or combined review phases, the associated well feature will be considered awarded during the current review phase if simultaneous reviews are occurring. Otherwise, this will be updated during the next well documentation or performance review phase submittal. Similarly, when a well feature is awarded in a documentation or performance review phase, the associated LEED credit can be marked as awarded in the design, construction, or combined review phase, noting that any LEED credit, depending on a well feature with an on-site component, will be awarded during the current or next LEED review phase after the performance review of that feature is complete. Okay, so that was a lot of information. Hopefully you were able to soak it in. Before we jump onto the Q&A, we can jump to the next slide. I want to take a minute and recognize and talk about the first project that was able to utilize the Streamlined pathway. So that project is TVS Atlanta, which is an architecture firm in Atlanta, Georgia. It is a 33,000 square foot interiors project, and the project was already planning on pursuing both LEED and WELL, but once the Streamlined process was launched, they were able to utilize the pathway to speed up their certification timeline. They achieved both LEED and WELL Platinum certifications. The project finished construction and then conducted performance testing over the summer. In addition to submitting their LEED and WELL documentation reviews at the same time, they also submitted their performance testing results at the same time. So for those maybe not as familiar with WELL, typically the documentation review is done first, and then after that, the performance testing is conducted and submitted for review. However, each of these review phases does have a 20 to 25 day review cycle. So teams that would like can conduct the performance testing prior to the documentation review being submitted and submit all documentation at one time, which is what we consider a concurrent review. So TVS Atlanta took advantage of this process. This allowed them to shorten their review or certification timeline and achieve certification prior to Greenbuild and the WELL Summit last fall. Looking at how TVS utilized the crosswalk, they achieved 19% of their WELL points and 7% of their WELL preconditions by using approved LEED credits. They were awarded 9 of their LEED credits based on their WELL features. And they were the first project to utilize the Streamlined pathway. And the image above, on the next slide actually, is where they were both awarded their LEED and WELL plaques at the same time. So one of the things that helped them most for this project was understanding the timeline and goals for the project team. When a project team has specific goals or deadlines they're trying to achieve, reaching out to IWBI early on in the process will allow us to help support in outlining the potential different pathways or options for that project, as well as understanding milestone deadlines that must be met in order to achieve the final goal. We're also eager to get feedback from project teams that are utilizing the Streamlined pathway. That feedback helps us in developing future versions of this program, as well as allows us to have projects to highlight that can share their knowledge and experience with other project teams. So if you're utilizing the Streamlined pathway and have feedback to share, please let us know. And with that, I think we can open up to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Kate. That was great. If anyone wants to raise their hand and share their question out loud, they're welcome to.
Yeah, hi. I'm new to this process. And for me, it would be very helpful to have a little more visual cues on how the design works in relationship to what is submitted. I mean, I understand that there are forms to be dealt with, and that's all very structured, and it's very good to have a streamlined process. But as a designer, I'm really interested, how do I work with it? You know, the designer is really focused on attaining the best design possible. So how do you go from there into the forms? So do you have like case studies in which that can be studied, and, you know, maybe a future presentation, a suggestion to have that a little more running parallel to what kind of forms am I doing, but what did I do as a designer? I hope the question is clear.
That's a good question, and let me see if I can kind of take a stab at answering that. From our experience, what project teams typically do is, I mean, ideally you're starting with a holistic view of, yes, what do you want your project to do? What goals do you want to achieve? What sustainability goals? What wellness goals? And then from that is starting to see how that might apply to either LEED or WELL. So a lot of times, obviously, if you are doing a sustainable project and one that's focused on wellness, there are going to be lots of aspects that apply to those LEED and WELL features. We don't have any specific documentation that kind of gets you from, hey, here's our overall design scope. to kind of outlining which specific features. The template really is to highlight for this program is to highlight kind of where that overlap is and to help communicate with the review team. So, but that is it's a good question and a good flag of kind of how do we guide teams from kind of those initial charrette discussions and here's what our goals are and here's what we're accomplishing for the project to guide them into how does that actually fit into either LEED or WELL certification.
Yep. Thank you.
And I'll also share just a guide to getting started, at least with WELL, and that should kind of help guide where you go next.
It looks like I can answer a little more in depth on the question on performance testing. So for those that are kind of new to WELL, the documentation process is a lot less than you might anticipate for LEED because there is performance testing after it. So the easiest example is to kind of look at VOCs. So for LEED, there's a lot of documentation you provide for the VOC content of the materials you're putting in. For WELL, you're going to have your team kind of sign a letter stating, yes, we've intended to meet these goals, but then what we're going to do is we send performance testing agents into your project, and they're actually going to take air sampling results and measure the VOCs that are in your project. So that happens for air, water, acoustics, lighting, and thermal comfort. So those are the 5 categories that performance testing agents are going to test for. There are, at this point, performance testing agents globally, and for V2 projects, you can contract direct with them, or you can reach out to IWI and we will help coordinate and schedule the testing for you. V1 projects do still have to come through, but if you're using this crosswalk, then you're a V2 project anyway. But the performance testing is kind of just confirming that what you intended when you went to design the building actually happened. So we test the lighting levels, we look at the thermal comfort, we test the water that's coming into the building so that we know that you do have clean drinking water and things like that.
Kate, there was just a question in the chat about other alignments planned with WELL. Yeah, Liz, you're probably on that. Just wanted to raise that too.
Yes, no problem. I just put a link in the chat and can just talk over this live. We do have multiple crosswalks available. We also have a crosswalk with BREEAM, Green Star, GRES, Living Building Challenge, Neighbors, Reset, Smart Score, and Green Mark. So in terms of sites, we do not have a crosswalk. I can definitely look into to see if that's something that's in progress. Or maybe Kate, maybe you would know. I don't think we have a site alignment at the moment.
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah. And then I see we also have a raised hand from John.
Yes, thank you. I am curious. So I was doing one of my first WELL projects actually rather recently. One of the questions that came up was about conformance testing. So we're on the acoustics sides of things. So of course we can do both the design and technically the conformance testing. Is there, because I didn't find it, is there documentation that disallows that for potential conflict of interest or anything like that? Or is that not, because I know, like, say in public schools, when they're going after high performance and things like that, the design team can design and do conformance testing. So I wanted to know if that was allowed under WELL or not.
So there is.
Well, go ahead, Kate.
So that is something essentially we would consider kind of a minor conflict of interest. The same organization can be part of the design team and the performance testing organization. However, the same individuals cannot be. So what we do ask is that the design team members are different from the actual individuals doing the testing. Typically, they have different expertise levels anyway, so it's not the people who have the qualifications to do and the experience to do the performance testing aren't necessarily the people on the design team anyway. But so we do ask that there's a separation, the documents are separated, that you're not sharing information. But yes, the same organization can. We also do still ask that that's disclosed when the performance testing data is submitted, so that we are aware that, yes, you're also aware of the situation, you've taken the measures in place to ensure that there is some separation between the two teams.
And John, are
Great,
you
thank you.
are you a performance testing organization, a well performance testing organization?
No, that's a good point. I guess if there's a link, so we test in accordance to either ASTM or ISO standards for the applicable, whether it's for walls, which goes under an ASTM 336, or whether it's for impact, which is under ASTM 1007. So and those tend to be in the acoustical world, the main conformance bodies and the published standards. So we test according to those standards, but if there is a path for that, we would definitely be interested in that. So I guess if there's a link for that, maybe maybe you can put that in the chat and I can do my own research on that end and not bore everybody with my very, very specific question.
All good. Yes, I just put a link in the chat to becoming a performance testing organization for WELL. So that contains more information about being able to submit the testing results for WELL specifically. You do have to be a performance testing organization. So there's more information there. If you have any additional questions, you can also email me directly. And I'll put my response in
thank
the
you.
chat as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No problem. Any other questions? Right, I'll answer this one live as well. Becoming a WELL AP. So they're essentially, to become a WELL AP, you have to register to become a WELL AP and take an exam. So there are various WELL AP exam resources available. I'll also send through that link. A couple of people have asked about becoming a WELL AP, which is great. So here's a link to the landing page that includes a bunch of different information to register, where you can get any resources for studying, how to take the exam. All of your questions are there in that link. And there's also a discount for WELL AP through USGBC LA. So Kim, if you want to share that information, I think that was just in a recent newsletter. We can share that as well. I'll also answer Mohammed's question live as well. So I don't have the % of certification for older buildings off the top of my head, but there are a large portion of certified and also rated buildings that have been existing, including actually IWBI headquarters. It was built in 1936 and we achieved WELL Platinum certification. So it's definitely available for existing buildings, including older buildings and heritage buildings. I believe over the past couple of years, especially with the introduction of WELL ratings, there are many pathways available for existing buildings. So if you have any other questions on that, also happy to elaborate offline.
I'll also just touch on that really quickly because I know there's also LEED for existing buildings, which we don't currently have a crosswalk with, but that is kind of one of the first places we're looking with in terms of LEED V5, in terms of how might there be alignment between WELL and LEED V5 in terms of kind of this crosswalk and stuff like that. So it's definitely on the radar of project teams have asked for it. And so we're trying to kind of look at it. We've got the standard development teams assessing what overlap there might be and if there might be a way to provide additional resources for that.
Maybe while we wait for other questions, any last minute questions to come through, I'll just voice over the WELL conference real quick. So our inaugural WELL conference is happening May 7th through 9th in Long Beach. So it is local, somewhat local for the USGBC LA community. So this is for anyone that's been to our 2 previous Well summits in DC and in Scottsdale. This is the conference version of those summits. So it's a full 2.5 days of programming. We do expect more attendees. So this will be definitely our flagship event, in addition to some of our regional summits that we're doing around the world. But the Long Beach event will be the flagship event. If you have any other questions about the event, please let me know. But we hope to see you all there. It's going to be great in terms of programming. Long Beach will be beautiful. Yeah, well APs,